And
Say it.
and we're live. I do believe we're live. I'm gonna say we're live
And it's
with
true.
my friend Bruce Watson. Bruce, you are the most styling guy. Cat. I don't want to say cat because that's like so
I
affected,
no, I'm
but
that old. You can say cat. That would be okay with
you
me.
you are just so okay. So the first thing I want to know is where did this come from? Like, were you the kid in school who was like, were you always groovy?
So not. I mean, maybe on the inside, but definitely not on the outside.
Really?
No, no, no. Truly, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I just. I'll tell you, like the closing just comes from seeing really great rock stars on stage and realizing what like looks good as from an audience. Like I don't want to see someone really necessarily standing in black. I don't
Right.
necessarily want to see that. Maybe that's some people's job where they're supposed to be in the background, but that's not what we do. So I just looked and it's like you just have to kind of be a little out of like you wouldn't walk out on the street necessarily like that, but so it's just stuff that would look good from an audience point of view. That's where my head is at.
All right. I'm gonna make sure that we are live. So hang on. And
Take your time, girl.
so I am going to, because I don't trust this. Bruce, in the olden days before the COVID. So
Yes.
tell me about you and COVID. What was your life like? What were you doing? Well, were you guys in tour? Were you mid-tour? What was going on for you?
Yeah, we were mid tour. I remember we were let's see, we were in Mexico City, then we flew to somewhere in Minnesota. I remember, and like the news started emerging, like, oh my God, this virus is happening and things are shutting down. And so I remember we had, it was many gigs booked ahead of us, and it was just we're going home. And of course nobody knew if it was going to be 2 weeks or what it was going to be. But it ended up being a very long time. We didn't tour for like at this point I can't remember. I blocked it all out, but definitely over a year. I don't think we did anything, right?
And so what were you doing during, what did you do? How did you use, were you constructively using your time or were you like,
There were certain parts of me that were constructive, but it's just I didn't. It was such an about face. Like we were just touring so hard, and it's just such a state of mind. And at first, I just like for the first month, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're gonna go home and just like wow, with no agenda. And I really enjoyed the first, I'd say, month. And then as I realized that it was not going to go away, and I was going to be, not being able to play with musicians and not be out and just exuding and performing and doing that whole thing, it started really stressing me out. So I exercised a lot. I walked a lot. But I really stepped up my beer game. I gotta tell you. I mean, I was already good at it, and that helped. That really helped. I did a lot of research, and it was ordering lots of different kinds of beers. So I increased my knowledge on that level.
okay, so
I
tell
didn't
me
I didn't
about
enjoy it
this.
though.
I read this about you, about the whole beer thing, and I
Yeah,
think about Snuffy being sober. I'm
yeah,
sober also,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you're not a drunk. Like you don't have a problem with it like we did.
I mean,
But
I can be if you need me to be.
no, but like, so where did this? Because you're like a spokesperson. Wait, what's your beer thing
Well,
is called
it's called
what?
it's sort of an offshoot of Foreigner, and it's called we do very important beer events like VIB instead of VIP.
Mhm.
And it started off with our keyboard player Michael Bluestein and I.
Uh-huh.
We like to drink beer, but uh, we didn't realize there's so much. The craft beer thing was exploding, and we realized there was so much to know. We liked certain things, we didn't know why. We didn't know why we liked the things we liked, and we started to really want to know that. And so we started digging in, and there's this program called the Cicerone program, which is the equivalent of a sommelier. There are four stages of it.
Oh,
There's first level, second level, third, and then a master Cicerone. And like a
wow.
master Cicerone, there are probably, I think there are definitely less than 30, maybe like 20 something master Cicerones in North America. Like it's a very serious
It's
deal. But so we
crazy.
just took the first level, which is very doable. But we got some very basic historical knowledge and knowledge about the chemistry and knowledge about the culture, and it was really great.
How long was your training?
You just did it online, so we studied,
Oh.
and then when you're ready to take the test, boom, you just take it, and we both passed, and that led
Did you
to
cheat? Online, you can cheat. Come
no,
on, you can cheat.
we only cheated to the extent that we took it together. So
Oh, okay.
maybe if I didn't know one, I maybe refer to Michael. So together we have all the knowledge. But then so we took that, and we that sort of allowed us to speak semi-intelligently with brewmasters at breweries around the country. So we go around the country. If we have a day off, my guitar tech would find a
Wow.
place, and then we would go and perform music and you know, hang out with people and drink beer and get to know more about beer and get to know the people in a particular city. And it's actually grown into like a really kind of a legitimate musical event with the addition of Luis Maldonado, who's our other guitar player, and he's got a ridiculously great voice. So the three of
Yes,
us have a. Yeah, did you hear? Could you tell?
yeah.
Yeah. He's just an outstanding musician and a killer singer. So
We came and saw you guys. You were
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. He's fantastic. So anyway, the VIB thing has just been super fun, and it sort of
So
sprouted its
when you
own
host
legs.
these events, are people coming more because they're coming for beer, or are they
Yeah.
coming because you guys are in Foreigner? Come on, tell
we
the truth.
we had this fantasy of like, yes, we're in foreigners, that would get people's attention. They would come and we'd go
Right.
through, we'd like, let's hang out, talk about beer, you know, and like share thought, you know. No. They want to hear music.
Of course they
So
do.
I mean, most of them are honestly, you know, Bud Light drinkers, so they don't really, a lot of them don't really have a lot of desire to drink any exotic beers. They like beer, they like their beer, but they want to hear foreigner songs. So we now give that to them wholeheartedly.
So, okay, so I thought what you did was you were doing it for a specific kind of beer, but no, you are a sommelier of beer.
That's
So
overstating it, but
well,
yeah,
okay, so
we have, yeah,
have you gone, because you have traveled the world
yeah.
with music, so do you go and into exotic places to taste exotic beer? Like,
Well,
I
we
heard
did.
you're like a Guinness aficionado. Is that
Well, that's where that's you know that's really ground zero for me. I still go back to that. I just think it's an amazing beer. It's just so great. So always love that. But that's where it kind of started for me to being not just like a lager drinker. So, you know, Guinness was like, wow, there's more to life than just a lager. But to answer your question, we outside of the States and Canada, mostly we go to Europe. And
right?
you know, European beer drinkers don't necessarily want some American, middle-aged American rock guy coming in talking about beer to them. You know, it's a little, you don't go to Germany, you know, as an American and try to talk about beer. I listen when I go to
Yeah,
Germany. I listen about beer.
yeah.
So, but we do go check it out. It's really fun. And there's a lot of really crappy beer out there, and there's a lot of really great beer. So
So have you in your travels, have you discovered like some hidden gem that
I,
surprised you?
um, not in the way you're asking the question, but I think what always happens is we can go to a brewery and they can have an amazing facility and incredible kitchen and beautiful marketing and like, but they don't have strong beer. It's just amazing, you know. So again, a lot of people don't really know the difference or really care to, but they want to go and have a beer at a nice place that has a nice kitchen and is fun, you know. So a lot of these places are a lot of that, but then you'll find ones that the beer is what they're all about, and
Right.
they'll have just one or two. It's like, and the benchmark is really when you go to Great Britain for the ales, and when you go to Germany or the Czech Republic for pilsners. So that's kind of the benchmark for what we're trying to find. And so occasionally we'll find places in the States that are doing it that well. So there are gems
Wow.
out there, but it's you know, it's rare.
So now, Bruce, being a rock and roller, being in this world, has it ever become a problem for you? Has there ever been too much? I mean, did
Of
you
course. I mean, I mean, there's been a night. Of course, there's always, you know, the course of my life, there's been a too much night or two.
well,
Um,
a too much night or
yeah,
two is
yeah,
like
yeah,
that's okay. But I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
has it ever been a period of your life where okay, this year has been a little, I mean, it
Well,
hasn't gotten to that for you?
well, no, there's been times certainly where, especially touring, where there's a lot of monotony, and there's a lot of it can be a very narrow path you walk. So there's sometimes when you go like this 5 days in a row and you go like, wow, I mean, that's helping me get through those 5 days, but you want to just take a day or two off just because you want to get cleared. It doesn't ever, like going to the gym is the equalizer. All of us in the band go work out because you'll lose your mind and you'll lose your body if you don't. So you know, that's sort of a gauge that nothing would ever get in the way of that. So Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that
it's still
something you guys do as a band? Do you like go to the gym?
we don't schedule it, but we ended up
Yeah,
if we're at a hotel, we invariably
yeah,
run into one or two or three of each other because
right,
we have the same window of when we have to go schedule
right.
wise. So yeah, we do run into each other there. But yeah, they all have really, very nice pectoral muscles, everybody in Foreigner. Uh,
Everybody
Lots of
does.
good waxing and, manscaping.
So, okay, so let's go back to we'll get to the fashion stuff in a minute. So, okay, so you're a kid, you grew up in Los Angeles, and from what I understand, you're a third generation Angelino. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did your people three,
Hail from.
four, yeah, where do
Well, they
they
came.
come
Well,
from?
the thing I've yet to meet, there's more than a few third generation Los Angelinos, but I have it on both sides for my mom and my dad's side.
Wow.
So my dad's mom was born in LA in 1898, and my mom's dad was born in 1895. Can you imagine what LA was like then? I mean,
I
uh,
cannot.
yeah, yeah.
I
My
cannot.
grandmother used to tell me, like in the 70s, what she would tell me about, south of Beverly Drive was just like, rolling hills and creeks and bulrushes. It was just wild. And
Wow.
now it's all LA. But so yeah, they came. My mom's family came over from Ireland in the 1820s before the famine. No, nothing related to the famine. And then my dad's side, we had
And where did they come from?
Cork.
From Cork.
Yes, yes. And I can tell an interesting story about that, which I just
I
found
would
out.
love to hear it.
My cousin dug this up. So everyone assumes that when you're have an Irish heritage, they came over in the 1800s. It would be around the 1840s when the famine was happening. But
Right.
my family came over in the 1820s when the British government, that part of Ireland was becoming overpopulated, and there was becoming a problem with feeding people and just overcrowding, and it was becoming tense. And the British government wanted to thin that out and sort of reduce the tension, so they started offering homesteads to Irish people to go split to Canada. And so they would give them, a plot of land, 100 acres or something, and
Uh-huh.
whatever, set them up to populate Canada in case the United States wanted to make an incursion into Canada. So that would be a buffer um, and against that, and also just it would thin out the county in Ireland. So I thought that was just really interesting. This whole program to just get the Irish out of that part of Ireland and also to populate Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty trippy.
Okay, so then how did your people end up from Canada down to Los Angeles?
Yeah, they ended up and they landed in I think it could have been Nova Scotia, but wherever they landed, they uh, traveled by foot and
On
boat
foot.
by foot, boat, and not train though, but I think it was foot, boat, and horse. But there was some boats involved, as you can imagine. That part of Canada is very watery. So
Right.
it was obviously they're just an arduous start, and they ended up just outside Toronto. Then somehow they ended up in Winnipeg, and from there they came down into Minnesota and South Dakota. And it's hard for me to put it all together when they ended up coming to LA, but they did in the late 1800s.
In the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And so what did your people do?
Um, I don't remember what my great grandfather did when he came here. I've got it written down somewhere, but I wasn't prepared for the
That's
story. But yeah,
amazing that you have, I'm sorry, but it's
yeah, no,
amazing that you have this ancestry
yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. And I thank my cousin for digging that up and finding that. I just want to jump to my dad's side because I do have pre-internet. Like 30 years ago, my uncle went across the country and was looking at church records and death certificates all across the country, and we had a family tree going back to England in the 1600s. So
Wow.
yeah, the Watsons came over in the 1600s, not on the Mayflower,
Crazy.
but it's like pretty wild. It's just we have the whole tree like spanning
Okay, I
out.
just want to say last week I interviewed Jack Cassidy
Yeah, yeah, I
and
saw that.
his family came over in the 1600s. And it's like, what are
Wow,
the odds of
I know
this?
that's
This
wild,
is
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so and what did you, was there like an occupation that your father's people did something get passed down, or did they all just do different kind of
They
things
they
or
kind of they were the only thing that started. My grandfather started food a food brokerage company in Los Angeles, and so that my dad and his brother participated in that.
So
That,
what exactly was a food brokerage company? Like
that's
they
they
sold to
would,
restaurants or something?
well, they would represent manufacturers of food items to retail outlets, not to
Okay.
restaurants per se.
I see.
Although they did open a food and beverage part of that, but it was mostly representing to, grocery stores. Get them on the
Oh,
shelves, get shelf space, that kind of thing.
and was there a time when your father wanted you to go into the family business? Was
Yeah,
that ever the
yeah,
hope?
he did, but he saw pretty early on that I was much more interested in music.
Okay,
I
so let's talk about how that happened. So you're a tad bit younger than I am. So I was really young when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. That was
yeah,
like the awakening moment for me. What
yeah.
was your
Mine was, I mean, I remember awakening hearing the Beatles. I remember specifically when I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand." I didn't. I was born in '59, so
right?
some people my age do remember that Ed Sullivan show, but I don't. My parents didn't put it on because they weren't very musically inclined. But but I remember hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" at my cousin's house. That was huge because it just something about, and Norwegian Wood. Those two really blew my
Mm.
mind. But the light went off with the Monkees and Creedence Clearwater.
Oh,
That's
wow.
really, yeah. The Beatles even came after those, but those two. But then again, like I have even earlier memories of driving in a car on an AM radio, hearing Stevie Wonder, all that Motown stuff.
Oh,
That
yeah.
went in, that went in early. It didn't really make me want to play guitar, but that stuff really went in.
Did you come home you're probably too young for this. Did you come home from school and watch the Monkees, or was that before
Oh
your
yeah.
time?
Oh, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
so into it. I was so into it.
Because
Yeah.
I became friends later in life with Micky and with Mike, and
Wow.
they did my thing. Yeah, wow,
Wow.
and they what amazing Jesus. So okay,
Uh,
so how old were you when you said, okay, this is what that's what I want to do?
well, I'm not sure I had the maturity or vision yet to say that's what I want to do, but I remember there were two events. The first was my sister took guitar lessons. She's 4 years older than me. And I never knew that she took them, but I knew there was a guitar in the back of her closet. and and one day, of course, I couldn't, when she wasn't there, I'd have to go and snoop around her closet, of course. And I pulled the guitar out and I can play. I mean, I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but I can play the first thing when the guitar went through my body. And I was like, what is this? I can play the song. And I never played it. It's not something that I just laid it on my lap and here's what I did. I wasn't ready for this. It's so cool. I laid it on my lap. It
Oh,
was
goody.
it was so meaningful that I remember it. And I laid it flat on my lap like this. I can do this actually. And
Cool.
here's the first thing that Bruce Watson ever played when the light went off. All righty then.
Oh, you're gonna get this. You're gonna get this. This is worth it.
So I'll stand up and do it. It's this.
I can't. I'm not hearing it. Shit.
That was just a complete meltdown when my phone fell.
Oh, oh no. I'm doing wardrobe malfunctions. Look how pretty
Sound
it
when
is.
my
Um,
that was just a complete meltdown when my phone fell, didn't it?
are you on a phone or are you on a computer?
Yeah, I'm on a phone. And it was
So,
mounted.
so you had it turn.
Yeah,
Oh,
here
there
we
you
go. Here we
go.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just had it all nicely clipped, and my clip
Yes, you
like fell
did.
down
I'm
and broke.
sorry. So
So
I'm
you didn't hear?
sorry
Did you
that
hear my song? Did you hear my
I
little
couldn't
song?
hear what the song was.
Okay.
No.
Okay, here it is. Ready? First song ever.
You know what it is? You're on earbuds, so we can't hear it.
You can't hear this, really,
No,
but you can hear me speak.
I can hear you speak.
Wow. Well, maybe it's not meant to be.
Well, tell us what it is.
Yeah. Well, it was just open strings on a guitar, like laying on my lap and just plucking strings. I can't believe you
Just
didn't hear that.
plucking strings.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just a little pattern that I played right out of the gate. It was like I felt it just like I made music, which I'd never done before. And I was like,
Wow.
wow. And then fortunately, right around the same age, my buddy, I was 10, I think. He was taking guitar lessons, so he knew how to play a D chord and a G and an A and an E minor. And so he started showing me chords. And I didn't have a
Wow.
guitar, so he let me borrow, like I played his little brother's guitar or something. And that's how it went. Yeah. I just like, wow, it was so captivating to be able to play just even just playing a chord to this day, just a chord on the guitar.
And
Just feels
so
so good.
would you like listen to music and be able to play to it? Was that
I mean,
something that you took to?
yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself fantastic at it, but I didn't take lessons. That's what I did. I just listened to records and, you know, tried to figure it
And
out.
you obviously do read music because you were a session musician.
Well, I was the guy they called that when they didn't have to read music.
You know, Snuffy doesn't read music either. Okay,
I,
so we're going to
that's
talk about this.
yeah, that's why he supports me. He supports my endeavors. He gets me.
Wow, so you don't
Yeah.
read music either.
I mean, I know how it works and I know what's going on, but if you put it in front of me and want me to play something, there's no way, you know. I know how it works, but I can't use it, you know.
Okay, so how the hell did you? All right, I want to jump to the session work, but we'll take it in order. So okay, so you start plucking around, and
Yeah,
you're 10 years old and stuff.
right, right.
Now, is the dream to be a rock star? Is the dream to be a musician? Is the what's the thing?
You're very good at this. You should do this for a living. Um, the dream was to be a rock star. Yeah, to
Of
write
course.
songs, play, have my band. I knew right away that I wasn't strong enough a singer to be that guy. I wish I was, but or back then I wish I was. Now I don't wish I was, but yeah. So I want to be writing songs and get a record deal and play my songs with my band in front of lots of people.
So okay, so you started on that path, and so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
assume that you had high school that you did the high school band
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and what did that look like for you? Were you doing covers? Were you
Yeah, covers. Um, and that band morphed into because then I started like writing, and so and then, actually I was singing because no one else would do it. So it was maybe that's why I didn't go anywhere. But yeah, so we were doing covers, and I did covers for a long time while doing original stuff, and I had day jobs, and
okay,
you
so
know,
wait, so like when you were a cover band,
yeah.
what were you covering for? This is too
Oh,
like what were you covering?
we never did foreign, but we it was a lot of Eagles and Led Zeppelin and
Zeppelin, wow.
Almond Brothers.
Hmm.
Um, we would have done a lot of Yes if someone could have hit those notes, but yeah, yeah, yeah. That was I'm sure it was like 90% Zeppelin and Eagles and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young,
That's
Jackson
quite a
Brown. Yeah,
from Zeppelin to the Eagles and Jackson Brown is quite a that's
yeah. But if you're my age, it's such a no brainer, you know.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah.
And so playing lead guitar, was that something that just you took to like that was just
When I say, when you say took to it, I gravitated towards it. I wanted to do it and I did it, but it's always been like, it's always been a lot of work. Some guys I remember when they're very young, just had it just flowed out of them very easily. And it wasn't for me. It's always, and still is like, I feel like it's like a drowning man always. Um, but I
were
think
you
out
one
of
of
that,
those guys that did you like take your guitar everywhere? Were you like playing guitar all day long, all night? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And I think probably why I had more of a slower ascent because I had no practice. I had poor practice habits. I was practicing sort of bad things, and locking those in because but didn't take any instruction. I have no regrets because it forced me to just, define myself with all my, you know, flaws and strengths. But
And you play like Bruce Watson.
I, I mean, you can hear all my influences, but like I try not to like play riffs, other people's riffs. I try not to, unless you're paying me, then I will. But
That's a good way to look at it.
Uh,
Okay, so you worked at it, and so you're doing cover bands, you're starting to
yeah,
write. So when you start writing music, what kind of music are you writing? Like, so what is
totally
your music?
progressive. It was totally progressive. Like
Like,
like if we like Yes or Rush or Allman
oh,
Brothers or Yes was a massive influence.
love yes.
So, but I mean, it was so funny because we were trying to get to be better musicians. We were young men with a lot of energy and testosterone, and it's just we were so overly complicated. It's hysterical to think about it now. I don't even have any of it. I have some of the guys that probably do, but I have none of it. I would love to hear it, but it was just so decidedly overly complicated. You
What
know,
was the name of your band?
Aragorn,
Aragorn.
which this was in the 70s and 80s, and so that was from the Lord of the Rings, well before the movie, decades before the movie. So
Uh-huh.
we chose that name, and it was a horrible name because everyone would read it and they say Argon, no Aragorn, Eragon, no Aragorn. It was a horrible name with really
Oh,
super complicated music.
oh my God. And
Yeah.
okay, and what was the look, Bruce? How
Oh,
did the look start to happen?
oh, the look was just it probably was closer to like a shoegazing Seattle early 90s look, but
The grunge
with
thing?
you know pre-grunge though. Like we just wore flannels and hoodies, and we were just punks. Just we just smoked so much pot, and it was just
That was my drug of choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like so yeah. Everything happened after smoking a bunch of pot, whatever it was. So I looked like that guy, pimply, like too skinny and
Oh my
baggy
God.
clothes. Yeah,
Oh my God. Okay. So how do you, okay, you said you had day jobs. So what did that
yeah.
look like? What kind of day jobs?
Um, I was man, the worst. The worst was a bank teller. A friend of mine was a drummer. He was a supervisor at a bank. And I said, man, I need a job. He's like, well, I can probably hire you. You can be a teller. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, whatever that is. And it was like, I sucked at it so bad. I quit before they fired me because I can't read. I think I'm dyslexic because I couldn't balance every day. I was a teller taking people's money. I couldn't balance. I couldn't balance a
Oh
drawer.
my God.
I was great with the customers, made them feel really good about making their deposits, but
I
I just
bet.
was terrible at it. So I quit after a few months before they fired me. That was the worst, man.
Oh my
Standing at a
God.
window in like a tie and like people just coming at you all day, like, oh, it
I
was
can't
really
even.
bad.
And did you not have Rockstar long hair in those
No,
days?
man, no,
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 no.
no.
I mean, that was early 80s. So, whatever was going on then.
Well, the 80s.
Well, I couldn't at the bank, I couldn't have had long hair. I had an earring. I had to put a band-aid on my ear to cover my earring.
Gosh.
Oh, it was so,
Oh
what's the
my
right word?
God,
Like,
that's hysterical. Actually, my hair looked very much like it does right now in the 80s.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, I can see that. That's cool.
so now, how did your parents feel about, all right, wait, how did you do in school? How were you doing in school while you were doing all this stuff?
I just barely squeaked by with everything. I went to college and I graduated, but it was just so by the skin of my teeth. So by the
Okay.
skin of my teeth. I just, my dad bribed me actually, and it was really amazing. Bribe. He told me that if I graduated, he would buy me a Martin guitar, thinking that he probably
Oh.
wouldn't have to like pay up on it. But he was happy to. And to this day, it's like it's my number one guitar. I've played it on a lot of cool
Oh,
stuff. Yeah, it's a really
oh,
great guitar. And it was 1976 that he bought it for me.
oh,
And yeah, yeah. So
that's a,
it's really
oh.
cool. It's really a
And
great
so how
guitar.
did they feel about, what was your major in college?
Uh, Business marketing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, we might need 2 hours if you want to go down all this.
That's hysterical.
It was a
So,
really slow ascent. My career, very very shallow curve.
so were you making money? Like when you were in the Argons, were you guys making money?
See the Argons.
I said it wrong already.
Yeah, yeah.
Aragons.
See Aragorn.
Lord of the Rings. No,
I
I
know.
I hated Tolkien. I'm
That's
a
all good.
girl. I didn't
That's all.
like that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Um, was I making money? Yeah, with Aragorn probably making
Eragon, there you go.
beer and $75, nothing. It was like original band, just and then working day gigs and living at home.
So other than the bank teller, what other day gigs did you
And
work
then
at McDonald's? Did you ever do that?
no, I
No.
didn't, but I was not, I wouldn't be, it wouldn't have been beneath me. I was a waiter for, I don't know how long before, and I just couldn't do that. Okay, here's what happened with that. Told a friend, I need a job, man. He goes, well, I can get you a job. It's a nice restaurant in Sherman Oaks. And he said, well, I'll just tell him you worked with me at Oscar's, the steakhouse. I go, okay. Well, it turns out Oscar's was like a 4-star steakhouse. So I never waited. I didn't know what I was doing. So I go in. The manager's a French guy. Well, George tells me you worked with him at Oscar's. At Oscar's, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he said, well, you must be good. Okay, well, can you start tomorrow? Yeah, okay, great. So I go in. First day, follow some girl around. We learn the register and stuff. Then next day, 6 tables at lunch. And I was just like, I had no idea what I was doing. So I got canned. But then I had one really cool job before I actually was able to make a living. And that was working for a company called Audio Effects in LA. And they delivered all manner of recording gear to all the studios in LA. Everything from 24-track recording machines to all the outboard gear, compressors and equalizers and microphones, tons of amazing microphones. So drive around the studios and deliver this gear to really, I remember walking, it led me to drive down a driveway in Beverly Hills off Benedict Canyon. As I pull up, I look at a room above the garage and I see like people milling around. I'm bringing some microphones or whatever. And I look, I'm like, that's Tom Petty up there.
Oh my
And then
God.
they keep walking around. Like, that's Bob Dylan. And then I saw George Harrison, and it was the Traveling Wilburys.
Wilburys. Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my God.
So here I was, like in my wife beater and my torn up jeans,
Oh my
and
God.
delivering microphones, and I got to deliver to the Traveling Wilburys session. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, that was a cool job.
I read something that that you were really into Joni Mitchell music.
Yeah. I mean, she moves me like.
We just got to go to the Joni Jam.
At the Bowl. Was it at the Bowl?
It was at the Bowl.
Yeah.
It was quite something.
Wow. Wow.
So okay, so you're we'll talk about how many of your heroes you got to play with, but so you're doing these day jobs, you have this band, and I'm not even going to try to say the name again because I'll butcher it again. So now when do you start to make a living as a musician, and how does that happen?
To make a living, I was making money, but I wasn't making enough to get by.
Living. So you don't have to take a day job.
Yeah. So what happened was a friend of mine who I was playing in, I was just playing with many bands as possible around LA. This is probably in like 1989, maybe, or something like 90. And a friend of my bass player, he played with Bobby Kimball after Bobby Kimball had left Toto, the singer for Toto. And he said, hey, we need a guitar player. Would you like to come do the gig? I was like, yeah. So I went and met Bobby. We played, and it was great. He was great fun, and obviously we got to play great tunes. And so that was just enough to where I was able to, go on the road, and didn't have to do a day job anymore. So thank you, Bobby.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Was that a good period of Bobby's life? Was that a good time for him?
I mean, he was a lot of fun, man. And he really enjoyed it. He was having a hard time with his voice.
Yeah.
It was traveling and just, he would have some rough nights. And I say that because I felt so bad for him. So that's always hard when you're with a singer. It's like, it's not like playing guitar where no matter what, you can kind of make it work, but it's just hard when singers, they get locked into that high tenor thing for guys, and just, it was really brutal. Not the first person I've had to witness that,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I had a blast with him. He was really nice to me. And that went on for maybe like a year or so, year and a half. And that was good fun. It was good fun.
And I know that you also played with Patty Smyth, yes?
Right.
Was that how much later was that?
Yeah, not too much later, I don't think. I don't think it was within a year, I think.
And how did you get that gig?
That was another bass player, different bass player friend of mine who was playing with her. And let's see.
Because
that's all I can say.
What year because she was New York based.
Yeah.
And
She was
And
living
so
in
like,
LA at the time, actually. She was living in LA at the time.
oh,
She lived up in Topanga Canyon. But that's not why. I don't think, well, maybe that is why, part of what facilitated it. But it was she had the same management as Rod Stewart. And so when Rod came out with that massive Unplugged record, uh, Patty was same manager. And so we opened as an acoustic thing in front of Rod for, I
wow.
guess, 6
Oh,
months or
it's an
so.
acoustic thing.
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
Patty, myself, and Val McCallum, who's like ridiculous guitar player artist in LA.
When was that?
This is like 92, 93, 92,
Was
93.
she was already with McEnroe?
No,
No.
no, they hadn't met yet. Yeah, they hadn't met yet.
Okay,
Uh,
that's,
yeah.
I
And
was
then,
going to
but
ask you if you ever got to, because he plays.
yeah. She
So,
invited me to come one time to come over to her house when she was still in LA to jam, but for some reason it didn't happen. And then she moved and we lost kind of, parted ways. But she was fun too. Great singer. She was great.
yeah.
Really great.
When she was with Scandal.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
in the New York rock and roll thing then, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember that whole deal. And so, so that was a legit. So opening for Rod
Yeah.
Stewart, holy shit,
Yeah.
that's like the big time.
And that's how I sort of met those guys. And then that's how I got to do a couple gigs with Rod because, just being around them,
Wow.
that's kind of how stuff happens. God,
And then how about and you played with BB King. How did that happen?
that was for a commercial. I didn't remember he was doing he was diabetic, and so he was doing these commercials for diabetes.
Oh,
I don't,
wow.
it was for an injection or some kind of technology. And I did a lot of work for this production company who was doing those commercials for him, and so he needed a track to come and play and sing over. They had lyrics, and so I got to, I produced the track. I mean, yes, I did. It was a blues tune. It was, we just got amazing musicians to come in and record a blues track in LA. And then we took that and went to New York. And when he was on the road, he pulled into a studio on day off and came. And he was very into that, doing that session because I think it was very lucrative for him. And also,
Mm.
he said that it exposed him through that commercial to a whole new demographic that wasn't coming to his shows. So I guess
Wow.
he'd done a few of these for the prior year, and he said he definitely noticed a difference by doing these commercials, that it had boosted his attendance and opened up new faces. So he was really
Wow.
very, even though it was a commercial, he was very pleased to do it. And so I, again, how do you produce BB King? I didn't. I just was cueing him like when to sing and when to play. So I sat. This was amazing, pivotal moment. He sat 3 feet in front of me in a chair with his guitar, and I sat in a folding chair in front of him. And so that we were in headphones. They'd play the track, and he would want me to cue him when to sing, and then when he would do his own riffs, and then so the track would be playing, and I'd give him a cue when he should sing his line. He would sing, like he'd look me dead in the eye, waiting for me to cue
Jesus.
him. And then he would sing it, and then he'd close his eyes and he'd play a riff on the guitar. And he'd come back and lock eyes with me. I get chills talking about it, for me to cue
My God,
him
I'm
to
getting
sing his
chills.
next line. I mean, it's just a commercial, but it was BB King, and he wasn't playing. He was like, he wasn't taking it lightly. So he was staring me in the
He was
eyes,
given 100%.
giving 100%. And it was just like, wow, man. And he had me, he said, go over and just, set my amp up. And I was like, okay, do you like it? How much gain do you like? How do you like? He said, just go ahead, just do it sounds good. He's playing, and I like set his amp up sort of, and he
Jesus.
was didn't say a word. He said, that sounds good, okay. And he was just what a gentleman, just an
Wow.
absolute gentleman. He was really affirming, that someone of his stature could be so kind, and you know
Wow. How did you come to, what had you done to that? How did you start to, all right. How did you get into session work? How did
yeah,
you don't read music?
right.
How did you break into that?
It was the timing was such that it was probably 92, right? Like between Bobby Kimball or even during, and Patty Smyth in the early 90s, grunge hit. And all of a sudden, TV commercials, film, television, they wanted that sound in their tracks. They didn't want these amazing musicians who were doing all of the sessions, like, you know, Steve Lukather and Jay Graydon and all that. I mean, and the guys that could read their asses off, and those brilliant musicians, they just didn't want that sound. And
Wow.
I very easily had that sound, you know. And there was a guy who, at the time, I had a female singer in my band, original band, and she was doing a lot of jingles because she had a really great voice. And so one guy that she worked for came down to one of our original gigs in LA, some stupid club around here, and he came up to me after. He said, "Hey, do you ever do sessions?" I was like, um, I don't know if I said no, but I mean, I was like, I don't know. I said, "Yeah, I should have you come up and play on some stuff." And I was like, I was instantly filled with terror and like excitement because I thought I knew it would involve reading music. And at some point, I told him, I said, "Listen, I don't read music." He said, "Oh, that's no problem. Just come up. We'll just, you know, it'll be cool." And so he had me come up, and it was like we just made up parts. And so he liked what I did. And he kept calling me, and I started meeting the best musicians in LA. I met all the Bissonnettes, you know, Matt and Greg Bissonette, Richard Page. I mean, just like amazing musicians, and connecting with them, and that would lead to other sessions. And so the timing was so right to be a sort of a raw player. And I just
Wow.
slid in, and then people knew that I didn't read, so they wouldn't call me for that stuff. And I mean, I'm pretty good at making up parts. I mean,
And
so
so how did you meet Snuffy? How did that, because I know you did Friday Night Lights with
right,
Snuffy.
right. Well, I've been a Snuffy fan for decades before I met him. I used to go see him play around LA
Oh, that's
when he
crazy.
was just a guitar player. I mean, he was legendary guitar player, but yeah, not doing any composing. So I knew of him and used to, you know, go check him out. But there's a composer that used to hire Snuffy as a guitar player named Bennett Salvay.
I know Bennett very well.
Yeah,
He's been on this
yes.
show.
Oh, good. Oh, cool.
Well, no,
Yeah.
Bennett worked for Snuffy first. Well, no, Bennett was working for Gary Marshall.
Well, I believe Bennett was hiring Snuffy as a guitar player before Snuffy had become Snuffy.
Bennett worked for Gary Marshall. He
Yeah,
started out in like the Happy
yeah,
Days kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yes, and
yeah.
Snuffy was one of the the guys in Squiggy's band. Yeah, the Squig Tones. Yeah.
Right, right. So, yeah, Bennett ended up was initially, I think, hired Snuffy as a guitar player, but
Hmm.
then I met Snuffy because Snuffy was hiring Bennett, or
Right.
hiring. You know, they were working
Right.
together on, and so um, I was recommended to Bennett to try to, you know, try to develop the sound for this new show, Friday Night Lights. And so I did like a mock-up. You know, Bennett, I met with him. I think probably talked with Snuffy on the phone. Maybe that's when I met him, probably on the phone with Bennett, talking about the show, what it was supposed to sound like, because it hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And so I took it upon myself to just sort of mock some stuff up with what I thought it should sound like, and I gave it to them, and they're like, "That's it, that's it, that's the sound," you know. So
That's so great. You know, they're
yeah,
doing a reboot.
that's what Snuffy just told me. And I told him, which I can't believe he didn't know, but it's in syndication, and I've seen it, and they yanked all the cool music because they didn't want to pay.
What?
They didn't want to pay for it. Obviously, they want to pay the residuals. So they have just cheesy, kind of like really
Oh,
low rent music in there,
oh.
which just you realize how good the music was. And I
The
say that
music
because
was incredible. You know, I just
yeah,
watched that series during the pandemic. I had
yeah,
never seen it.
yeah,
You know, a football series. What am I going to
right,
watch that for? But oh my God, it's an incredible series.
yeah, great acting, just really well written.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and the music
And
really supported
the
it.
music was great.
Yeah, 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 and I learned a great deal from that.
So, okay, so you're doing that stuff. How okay, so but also you've played on some really big hit songs too. You
Couple, yeah,
Christina Aguilera,
yeah,
What a
yeah,
Girl
right,
Wants.
right.
How does that happen? Now, I would think they'd go to like a player that reads music. You know, we're gonna. How do you
Right.
get that?
Well, that was a situation where the guy who was producing it, Guy, um, again, she was nobody. She was just like a 17-year-old kid, and obviously a great singer, but they were just trying to put tracks together, trying to figure out what she was going to be. And you know, you can hear you can hear the style of that first record, which I don't think she's a huge fan of, and it's, you know, it's straight up pop. And
Right.
but how that came to pass for me, the drummer Matt Logg, who now he's now the drummer in AC/DC. Um, he he was working on it. And they need a guitar player. And he said, "Oh, you should call Bruce." So I went in, and it was just kind of like very computerized, just play a bunch of stuff, and like he kind of just gathered a lot of material. And I think he edited a lot of it later. But I know that that song went through a lot of iterations, a lot of, you know, editing and cutting and adding stuff. And so I played a bunch of electric guitar, played some acoustic guitar. And in the end, it was, he called me and said, "Well, looks like your acoustic guitar made it on, whatever it was." So, which
Wow.
it was one of the first things that was played. So at least they kept that through the whole process. But yeah, so that was kind of cool that it made it through all the cuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then playing with Sara Bareilles, who is an
Yeah.
amazing musician herself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
What was that like? How'd you get that gig?
That was the producer Eric Ross, who produced her, called me. We'd done a lot of stuff together prior to that. And man, I mean, once again, she was not a proven artist. It was her first record, and she had songs and she had a deal, but what's she going to be? And Eric did a really great job of shaping her music. She had great songs, and then I remember sitting down, like hearing her voice. It was like these rough tracks. It was just, wow, man. She's just has a perfect voice. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
she's been singing so well with such control, and she never over-sings, never an unwanted, unneeded riff. She sings great melodies and just beautiful tone. And yeah, she was jaw-dropping. And that was a
Okay.
great project.
So then how did you start producing? Like, how did you become a producer from somebody who doesn't read music and you're doing these guitar parts? How do you start producing?
Well, I'm not, I know that I can produce, but I wouldn't say that I'm a producer because I haven't really, I've produced a lot of commercials and some stuff for TV.
So how did that start for you? How do you get your first producing gig when it's not really what you do?
Well, it's because it's what you do. It's what you do. It's what you deliver. I mean, it's you know, producing. You don't have to read music. You have to be able to put together instruments. And
So
as a
did
guitar
you did
player,
did you excel on in a session doing your own thing and somebody said, "Oh, I like what you did on that. I'm gonna."
I think it wasn't so singular. I think it's over the course of time as a guitar player, which Snuffy would be able to, support me on this. They call you in, and the bass player and the drummer, everyone plays a track, and then they're out, and then the guitar player will stay and for 2 more hours and do overdub after overdub and create an arrangement, which is really fun. It's the greatest part of playing guitar in the studio.
Mm,
So you just automatically, as a guitar player, you're going to learn how to arrange, and you're going to learn, yeah, you're going to learn or a bit of orchestration in a way.
I
So
see.
I mean, that's how it really happens, you know.
I
You
see.
end up a lot of times. I mean, as a guitar player, and I was pleased to do it, but people will call you in and they don't have any idea what they're going to do, and they'll have a drum and a bass track, and they'll go, "Okay, what do you hear?" And they turn you loose, and you start basically blowing out their whole song, which is great fun. Sometimes I would say that you're not credited for what you're doing, but I don't really care about that. It was real. That's the most satisfying thing. It's like, wow, they're gonna let me just go, and so you get that experience as a guitar player, putting, arranging.
And so where along this path does the whole Bruce Watson vibe start happening? When do you start developing like the rock star thing?
Well, I appreciate
Well,
that.
the whole
I can't
because
let
you
myself. Yeah, I
no,
mean,
you've
listen.
got you've
I'm in
got the
Foreigner.
clothes and the thing and the hair and everything is going on and it's happening. You got the accessories, you got it all going on.
Well, I did realize very early on there are a lot of things that you can do to advance your career that are a lot easier than learning how to be a good musician. you know, grow your hair. Put some bronzing cream on. I don't know. buy some nice pair of shoes. That's way easier than like getting to be better. I'm
You're
kind of being
very
serious.
modest. You've done all of those things, but
Well,
anyway, you know that.
but I think in joining Foreigner, it's been an amazing opportunity because
Okay,
it's yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, finish the sentence, and then I'm gonna ask you about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm answering your question as far as developing a persona.
Right.
As a guitar player in LA, you're always a sideman. You're always supporting someone else's thing, and you would be very ill-advised to step out of that lane if you're not asked to. And oftentimes, you're there to support a singer. You're there to support another artist. You're there to support a song. You're a supportive person. You know, you're an ensemble player, and so that's your headspace. You're like you're very aware of not overstepping your bounds with your presence or your playing. You know, don't overdo it. Do it just what's required, just enough, just what they want. But if you start doing too much, you'll get canned. So that's the mentality. And with Foreigner, I jumped into sub for Mick Jones, who's the leader and founder and the lead guitar player. So I had to immediately, step into those shoes. And it took me a minute to shed that mentality of like, don't overdo it, So
Right.
it was being thrown into that role. It was required to deliver a performance, to deliver. There's 6 guys on stage. You got to deliver at least a 6, if not more. So that's it was the opportunity to develop that side, more than just the actual musical side.
So had you done, okay, so like when you were with like Patty Smyth, you weren't like doing all the clothes and the hair and the
I mean, it was a different era, and I mean, for me, I'd have to look back and see what's going on. I mean, I had some goofy hair. I had some gigantic hair. Oh, I'm looking for the picture. I've got some really good pictures. I mean, I had in the '90s, I had hair down to my nipples, and in the '80s, I had a full. It wasn't a mullet, but like just gigantic Kevin Cronin curls up here, with like short on the sides. So I mean, I do what I could with the hair.
always had it going on. You always had it going on. So the stage, you do the whole thing with the movement and you're moving and you're a rock star. So did you have to work at that or did it come naturally to you?
Well,
Or
both. I mean, it's always been bubbling inside of me. Like I always want to present a song with energy and deliver the song, like I feel it. And I've always wanted to say that, physically, but again, a lot of times you better squash that. And there've been times that I have overdone it and you feel it afterwards. You just cringe. You go, God, I blew it. You feel so
really?
stupid. Yeah. You feel so stupid because you didn't read the room,
Mm,
and so yeah, that's how you learn. Not, that's how you get
right.
beaten down into that sideman thing. But I
How
was,
could you make it too big when you're playing like stadiums with Journey? I mean, what could it possibly be too big for that situation?
well, for that, it wasn't. See, that's, but once I stepped into Foreigner, then it was that, oh, now,
Oh, I see.
yeah, yeah. That was when it was a completely different ballgame in terms of that. And I was immediately encouraged to like, get
Oh, so
step
you were
out there.
talking about prior to
Yeah,
being
yeah,
in
yeah,
Foreigner.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
see.
yeah. There was, other than my own bands, there was no situation where I can remember being really encouraged to be very present. you know,
So, okay, so tell us how you got the Foreigner gig. Like, what, okay, so what were you doing um when I know it was like 2011. So what were you doing? What was happening in your musical
I,
career when that happened?
I was just doing a lot of sessions. I was working with Snuffy, probably right. I just asked him what year we stopped Friday Night Lights. It was right around that time,
Hmm.
probably maybe within a year of that. So there was a lot of session work in LA at the time. There was still a lot going on. So I wasn't seeking to go on the road. I was looking for
Oh,
that at all. I had a rather normal, I went to home and slept in my bed every night, and I had a 10-year-old daughter. So it was all good. But the situation was, the way it was presented was, we have a situation. Mick Jones has fallen ill. We need someone to jump in the middle of the tour to kind of cover him. You stylistically, you'd be the right guy. Can you do it? I was like, Foreigner? Like, yeah. They said, for a couple of weeks or whatever. Like, yeah, man, wow, amazing. And so, a couple of weeks, Mick wasn't ready to come back. Went on for a couple of weeks. This is like in September. So, okay, well, he's not ready to come back yet. How are you doing how are you doing in October? I was like, well, God, this is great. Yeah, man, touring with Journey and Night Ranger. Yeah, yeah, great. Get to the end of 2011 and like, well, thanks so much for helping us out. I said, yeah, it was amazing. And I was kind of bummed. I was like, wow, okay, that's it. And then the beginning of the year rolled around. They said, so how you looking? Because Mick's still not well enough to go on the road. So I started 2011, and long story short, here we are, in our 14th year later.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it was
And
not planned.
so, okay, so you have a daughter who's now
20,
25,
23.
23.
Yeah,
Okay, she was 10.
shoot, 10.
Okay,
Well,
so
maybe she'll be
uh,
24 soon.
so how was it being a dad who was on, so how much were you on the road?
Tons,
Oh, a lot.
like 9+ months a year.
So was that hard?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it was fulfilling, music on my personal level to be able to go out and
Mhm.
rock, to totally
Mhm.
go out and rock. But um, and the first year, again, like I didn't know if it was going to go. Once Mick came back, everyone was sure I'd be, going home.
Right.
So for a whole year beyond that, I was just kind of waiting for it to end anyway. So I wasn't really
And
worried.
why did they keep you on when he came back?
Well, when Mick came back, his health wasn't in a place where he could initially do the whole show. So like I
Mhm.
would play the first few songs, he would come out, play the rest of the set with me. So um, he liked the way I played, and I think he realized that I had so much respect for him, and like it was just he felt comfortable, and he
Mm.
realized that having me there took all the pressure off of him. If he didn't
Right.
feel well enough to show up for a gig, like the show would go on. So that it worked really well for him personally.
Right.
And we got along great, and so he wanted me to stay.
And how long did he continue to, because when we,
He
we came and saw you, he wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. So um, I mean, he has Parkinson's, so that's what has pulled him off the road.
Mhm.
And so over the course of time, let's see, back in 2012, he came back and sort of eased his way back in. And if we did 120 shows a year, he probably would do 50 shows maybe a
Oh,
year.
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and I wouldn't say since then he ever did more than that, really. I don't think he ever did. Maybe he did 60 one year, possibly, but I don't know. So he had a couple of years where he was doing great and felt
Hmm.
felt great, and then it just started getting harder again. So
Hmm.
been a slow recession. Doing less shows per year, playing a little bit less of the set, and Foreigner just got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know.
and unfortunately,
Congratulations.
Mick wasn't able to attend in person.
Mhm.
So so that's how that's progressed, for him, and that's why I'm here in Foreign.
So how long has it been since he stopped playing with you guys completely?
I think the last show he did with us was when we had a residency in Vegas, probably post COVID, probably 2 years.
Mhm.
I don't think he's been out in a couple of years.
And it doesn't seem like the fans care at all. They don't seem to be bothered by the fact that you guys are carrying on.
Yeah, the,
They
the majority definitely don't. I mean, I mean, it's no longer. I can't even remember the last time I heard about anybody complaining about it. Once in a while, someone will ask, "Hey, where's Mick?"
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, some people even ask, "Hey, where's Lou?" I mean, Lou hasn't been in the band for 20 years, so
Right,
people
right.
are, they come to a show and they're not necessarily avidly following the band, but um, uh, so it's a very unique situation. But it's Mick's band, and Mick has handpicked everybody that's in the band, and to that extent, he still pays attention to it, and you know, he doesn't really need to chime in on specific production stuff because it's frankly it's so well oiled,
Right.
and we understand what Foreigner is, and Foreigner comes out of us naturally. We have a
Right.
reverence for the recordings. We have a reverence for the guys that are still, they come out and play with us. The original guys, they come out and play with us anytime they want, and they do.
It's wonderful.
So yeah, it's a very unique situation. A situation that there are more than a handful of classic rockers that are jealous because the band is moving forward with people whose health won't permit them to be there, but it still allows the brand to go on.
And it's such the audience, it's the most loyal audience who knows like every word to every
Yeah.
song. It's like, don't get in their way. You know, it's like it's like a religious experience.
Yeah,
Like they're
yeah,
singing every word to
yeah,
every song. They're just and they're of a certain age.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
And
yeah.
it's even more than loyalty because there's so many people that have never been to a show, but they didn't realize they know that we're every word to every song. That's always a nice surprise when you see their faces explode when they go, oh, you see like, oh my God, the song for song, and it's their first show.
Well,
So
and that's the thing. Snuffy and I went, it was our first show. No, I
yeah,
think Snuffy had been to a show before, but
yeah,
I don't think he realized either. And we're sitting there and we knew every word to every
yeah,
song.
right,
And we're
right.
sitting there, wow, do I really know every word to every
Yeah,
foreigner? So yes, I
yeah, yeah.
do.
And then there's six more in the bag that we can't play because we can't play that long that are huge hits, and
Right.
it's just I can speak objectively about that because I didn't write the songs, so I can say how great the songs are. They're just to play
Just
them is like wow,
incredible.
they're so deadly to play. Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah, yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
Well, Bruce, the thing about you that's so lovely is you don't have like that. You have everything rock star going on, the look, the chops, the all of that going on, but you're just this regular, humble, lovely, accessible guy. And everybody says so. By the way, Lauren Gold told me to give you love, and I
Ah,
spoke to Lauren today. And everybody just adores you, from people in the business to people that have met you once to fans. Everybody adores you. And whatever you're doing, just keep doing it because and where do you shop? Okay, so that's my most important question. Really, really, truly,
okay.
where do you shop?
Well, I'll tell you, the majority of it would be at I at a Nordstrom or
I
Neiman
love it.
Marcus or the Beverly Center has a couple stores down there,
Hmm.
and I really don't like spending time shopping. I like walking in. Oh, that's cool. Boom. But I like that kind of shopping. I don't like
Yeah.
trying on and oh, there's this like not into that. So fortunately, like those places, I know if I hit, once or twice a year, if I go to make that round. I used to kind of go down to Melrose once in a while, but that's just
Yeah.
didn't really have it anymore.
Yeah.
So you go to the Beverly Center, Neiman Marcus, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, you know,
I love it.
that's all of it right
I
there.
can remember coming to LA for the first time. Well, it wasn't the first. Yeah, and going to the Beverly Center. It was all about going to Beverly but back then the Beverly Center really had niche stores, like really cool, like with stuff that you wouldn't see anywhere else. I don't know, is it still like that? I feel like now it's kind of more mainstream stores, but do they still have kind of,
It's much more homogenized. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Hmm.
It is. And I forgot to tell you, that was another job where it was another bass player. I realized he was the third bass player. His wife worked at a store in the Beverly Center in like 1983, and I needed a job. And she said, "Well, you can come down and work." I lived in the Valley, so I was driving every day. I worked at the Beverly Center for like, and that
Oh,
was a cool job actually because I met musicians and so that was actually a cool job. But
the Beverly Center in '83 was
yeah, it was
great.
bumping.
Oh
It was
my
cool.
God.
Yeah,
That's when I was coming once a year to shop there. It was
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
If you need a day job, that's one of the good ones.
Bruce,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. You are such a delight.
It's a pleasure. I want to advocate that we socialize outside of the telephone and the computer screen.
And please let's do that soon. I don't know if
We're
you're
gonna do
on the
that.
road, off the road.
No, I'm off
We're
for a while. I'm off for
well, we're in
months.
Encino. I don't know where you are, but
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
find you.
yes, yes. I want to do that.
I
Okay.
would love that.
This is a
We would
pleasure.
love
It's a
that.
pleasure. You're so good at this and so easy to